Yeah. Look at it. Too cool, right? Even if the wine completely sucked, I would have had to still consider maybe buying it just to have that bad boy label on the shelf. It's really awesome. Now, the cool thing is, besides the fact that the label's pretty dope, is that the wine is amazingly dope. For people that maybe you haven't heard, but there's an area in northern Piedmont called Spanna. And Vallana is the top producer, pretty much, in Spanna. And it's a label that didn't get around much, if at all, at least on the West Coast, here. You know, in New York, there was a bit of a cult following for this wine. In the East Coast, going through the 50s, 60s, 70s, etc., Vallana's Spanna wines were considered at kind of like the same level of quality as wines like, you know, Mascarello and some of the early Gaia stuff. And this guy was spoken of in the same reverent tones. But what happened is, a lot of folks got on the Barolo and Barbaresco bandwagon. You know, this area started making, I think the deal was Barolo and Barbaresco are bigger areas, and they started making more consistently great wine, particularly because it's a bit warmer there, and they had just better vintages to work with. When we're dealing with Spanna, what we're dealing with is the northern part of Piedmont. And in northern Piedmont, it's a bit cooler, you know, almost on the foothills of the Alps. You know, you're kind of adjacent to Switzerland and France, yodelay-hoo, and it can get a little chilly there. I mean, like snow and skiing and stuff like that. So Spanna, for a period of time there, through the 60s, 70s, 80s, you had a lot of cool years. And if it was cool in Barolo and Barbaresco, it was chilly in Spanna. So they didn't really get a chance to make, to me, probably as many profound wines during that time as they did maybe in the 50s. You know, in the 40s, 50s, you're talking 45, 47, 49, 51, 53, 55, 59. You know, you're talking a lot of warm years during that period, all the way up to, you know, 61. So now they're back at it. And the grandchildren of Antonio Vallana, including Marina Vallana, are making wines exactly the way Antonio did in the 50s and 60s. Growing the grapes the same way, fermenting it, crushing it the same way. This is a Nebbiolo-based wine, and all big barrels, I mean, when you think classic, like Italian classic, this is Italian classic, you know, big barrels, Nebbiolo, elegant, refined, perfumed, pretty, sweet cherry, strawberry flavors, spices, a nice little core of tannin to the wine and very good acidity, so it has this ability to just kind of like worm its way onto the dinner table, and boom, bottle's empty, plate's empty, what happened? You're like in this food and wine haze for an hour and a half as you're going through the process of enjoying this wine with whatever dish you have. It is, and actually I should backtrack a little bit. You know, this is, you know, Vallana, they do make a regular straight, what they call straight Spanna, which is a traditional white label with some red and that kind of stuff on the outside. But for this particular wine, they started up again. The reason behind this label, I guess, is what I'm getting to, is this Cuvee Bernardo Vallana. And Bernardo used to enjoy wine the most with family and friends in front of the Cantina del Camino, which is the fireplace inside the house. So this is in reverence back to those old labels from the 50s and the fact that, you know, the family used to enjoy the wine with good friends in front of the fireplace, just chilling, you know, Italian style. And this wine hails back to those days again. The winery says you can probably age this for up to 40, 50 years, which we've tasted Spanna is going back to the 50s and 60s. The good ones, yes, absolutely you can. But again, these wines from northern Piedmont have an earlier accessibility to them because they're not as heavy as the Barolo and Barbaresco wines. So you can get into this sooner and yet enjoy for an extended period of time, almost kind of like the wines from our friends in the Rioja area, kind of like the same parallels that we see. So you can forget about it or enjoy it now. It's your call. But if you've never spanned before, I would heavily recommend you start with this one.